of this Monday, September 18th, loan committee meeting. We'll start with a review of the minutes. Is everyone read the minutes? Any changes?
One, this is a typo. It referred to Molinaro. I think that's supposed to be Malinsky. Next paragraph there.
Yes,
Thank you.
the congressman has joined our loan committee.
Just to
I didn't
close
see
the
him at the
meeting, that's
meeting.
it.
Excellent.
Been quiet all day.
Thank you for reading the
In
notes.
addition with all the other responsibilities, yes.
Need a motion? Can I get a second?
Seconded.
Okay. Okay, the minutes are approved. And next, Martha will review the portfolio dashboard.
Yes, this is in your meeting packet. We have 2 clients that are in default, and we're aware of that. We've sent demand letters. They've been unresponsive. We have one very bottom that actually has slipped into the 90-day category, and we have asked them to make a payment on the CEDC loan by tomorrow. And then follow up with a second payment on both loans by the end of the month, and we'll see how that turns out. And I should mention that the one loan client D has asked us to modify her loan, and we will do that. We don't need committee or board approval to do that. She's trying very hard to make regular payments, so we continue to work with her.
Any questions or discussions? There's a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
So carried. Next on the agenda is the interest rate discussion.
We're currently at 6%, and we've been talking about increasing the rate. Justin pointed out last month that the prime is at 8.5%. We're aware of several banks that are quoting anywhere from 9 to 12% on business loans. And we just want to have a discussion and find out how the committee feels and where they think we should land.
I think, we want to be able to, I think it was the state fund that was at 9. What did I, and I know that, at Ulster we're doing prime or prime plus 1 for commercial loans. And so that gets you close to 9.5. I think that we want to serve our mission by having a rate that helps people get their business started, but at the same time, we don't want to be competing with the banks. And I think, if we have a 3% interest rate, it's going to look like, but most likely they're firms that either on a $15,000 or $25,000 loan, a bank would consider anyway. But I do think we need to also educate the people that we're working with that if it's always low, they'll never be able to run their business in the economy in which they're trying to operate if they don't have some sense of interest rates having gone up. On the flip side, if you look at this, you can see if we had the 3.75% loans during COVID because that matched what the SBA was providing people. And if we went to, we're at 6, so we're making $30,000 more a year than if we were at 3.75. At 7.5, we'd be making 50. At 9.5, we'd be at 130. Obviously, this was just a quick snapshot, based on a 9% or a $500,000 at 5-year at these various interest rates. Now, obviously, because it's the rule of 78, it's front loaded on the interest side. So you would actually be bringing more money in, but I just want this would just give you a snapshot over 5 years. So that column or row that says 1 year, I mean, that's a little bit that's averaged out and, oh, you,
The first year.
that's the first
That
year?
would be the
Okay,
first year.
so you did take the first, good, okay. So, I guess some feedback from the board member, committee members.
And we only do fixed rate loans, correct?
Correct.
You know, there's also the option for the variable rate. Well,
I think our loan management software will allow us, I'm not sure it does, but we're not allowed to do it on an SBA microloan, and we've just usually kept it the same across the board.
And they're fairly short loans, so it's not.
Yeah, we've been doing more and more 10-year loans on the CEDC loan fund.
I think that, your point is well taken, but that's also why if you were a point or two below market, it would average out for people. So, rates would have to drop 4 points
Right.
on a 5-year loan. I mean, you could do it where on a 10-year loan, you repriced it at 5.
I remember being at 8.5% many years ago, but since I've been working on the loan program, for years and years, we were between 7 and 7.75%, and just held it there. And we're busy, and most of the clients we work with are very happy to be able to obtain a business loan.
Right, I mean, that's
Yeah.
the other factor with dealing with, many borrowers who are not qualified for bank financing, so, generally more risk, higher rate. But we also want to serve these businesses, so I understand the balancing line. I did a loan for a business that was starting, that was an SBA 7A loan that we did with Pursuit, and that's completely variable, prime plus 275, so they're over 11%.
And the state program was what,
Some relief.
9.75 or so?
Yes.
The state just put out another small business loan package.
So I think we're very underpriced at 6%, even at 7.5%, it's still kind of best in class, and that's almost a residential mortgage rate.
So the COVID loans, were they all short-term?
They're all 5-year loans, so, they're halfway. Most of them were early. We did give people a 6-month deferral, so they were 5.5-year loans. But again, part of that was because during COVID, the SBA actually paid their interest and principal on the SBA loans. And on our loans, we gave them a deferral on payment, not, we weren't able to use CEDC funds to pay their mortgage, to pay the interest and principal. So
One thing we've done in the past is kept the SBA microloan at a higher rate. It could be 8.5% or even 9.5%. But then oftentimes we would offer the CEDC loan at 5 or 6%. So they would get a blended rate that was very reasonable. It depended on the business. If it was a very small startup and they just needed a microloan, they took it at 8.5%. But again, if it were a manufacturing or a more stable business, we would do that blended rate. It didn't always work out to our advantage because sometimes if they had the means, they would just pay off the higher rate SBA microloan. And those are the ones we need to continue to make in order to qualify for the technical assistance money.
Do they have any guidelines on where our percentage rate should be?
Yes, we are limited down here. If you look at the SBA SOP, we've never differentiated between loans of over 10,000 and under 10,000. So we're allowed to charge 7.75% over our cost of funds. Right now we're paying 0% in the first year on our most recent loan from the SBA. I think I stated earlier that that would rise to 4%. I'm incorrect because the note includes a 2% buy down. Our rate will be 2%, which means we'd be able to charge 9.75.
So if you're somewhere between 7.75 and 9.75, you'd be somewhere around 8.
You know, we also have the option of increasing our closing costs. I'm pretty sure the SBA allows us to go to 2%. We're at 1%, and we've been there for years and years.
And generally, they'll be waived.
Only occasionally.
I think that if we tied it to either a half a point below prime or prime. And then we didn't have to come back each time to
Yeah,
the
I was
board.
wondering if we had just a policy like that, tied to prime of some sort.
Prime is what, 8.5?
It doesn't reflect our cost of funds, of course, but.
Well, our cost of funds with the SBA
Yeah.
would be 2%. And right now, that's only on that tranche. And the first year you don't, as Martin said, you don't pay.
And the, on RLF 9, we're paying 0 across the board. There's no interest.
I mean, I'm sensing somewhere between 8 and 8.5 here. Is that what I'm? 7.5 to 8.5.
All right.
Well, our people that come into us, when do we get to the hardship level of their, what's a good interest rate for them?
Well, I
see
think
us
to-
going up too
Yeah,
high.
to Mike's point, individual businesses don't get to determine the interest rate, you know, it's based on.
Is there anything in the mission statement that references it?
Well, the
or-
SBA says that we should be, but then they say you can charge 7 points over.
They generally say when we attend those conferences that these are risky loans and, you know, we should be
I mean, if you
charging a
look-
reasonable interest.
If
rate.
you look at it from the borrower's perspective on a 20-year loan, you know, the delta is $14 a month between 6 and 7.5. So if you were, you know, difference between 7.5 and 9 presumably would be the same. So you'd be talking, you know, $30 a month. I mean, because of the size of our loans, you know, when we did the $15,000 instant loans, if you had a 600 credit score and had been in business for 2 years at the height of COVID, those payments were $235, and we didn't think there was any risk. And I don't think we've had any, are any of those in the default?
Which,
The instant loan.
oh, those rapid recovery. No, I don't think
So I
so.
think people, you know, they knew they could afford it. They're gonna pay you for $275 to get you off their sheet. They might not pay you at $3,000.
Right.
Because, so, you know, I do think it would bring it up to, 8 would bring it to,
So Sarah's suggestion would be tying it to prime, writing a fixed rate loan, just like prime minus a half, whatever it is
Yeah.
at that time. It's fixed.
Well, for a long time, for the sake of simplicity, we kept it at 7.75. Then it didn't matter what our cost of funds was, we were within the SBA guidelines. If we're at 8 or 8.5 and our cost of funds is 0, then and I'm not even sure, do we average out our cost of funds, you know?
no,
we
we
get some-
haven't paid it so long.
Right,
I mean,
right. So at
Less than
7.75.
$1,000 a year.
Yeah, we know we're in compliance. Again, we can go to 8.5% on the smaller loans. We've never differentiated, and I'm not sure we need to, but 7.75.
Under 7.75 flat then?
I'm comfortable with that.
Well, where do we think interest rates are going?
That's a good question.
Bank, Mr. Baker?
Probably up, at least in the short term, I think. Couple, next year or two, maybe they'll level off.
But they'll probably level off at 6.5 to 7.
I mean,
I think you're right, because on CDs right now, you're getting a lower rate for a longer term CD, a higher rate for a
Right.
short term.
it's an inverted yield curve, so,
Yeah.
What's that saying is that long term, they're gonna come down, short term, they're gonna stay high. Is it totally relevant for us if we're getting 0% funding? I mean, it's not like we're a bank that has to borrow every night and we're pegged to that
Yeah.
overnight rate. So, I would look at this organization more from a cost of funds standpoint. But I think where it's relevant is a sort of competition. Really have none. But again, that SBA, I mean, if you go to Pursuit right now for an SBA 7A loan, you're paying 11%. That's really the competition.
The only reason
So
not,
7.75 is still, I mean,
the only reason
6%
not to have a
is-
fixed, because if rates do go up or down, you don't have to come back to this committee to change the rate.
We have modified loans and.
No, but I mean, if you want simplicity, if you have it at prime or prime plus 1,
Oh, just so
then if
that-
rates go down, people coming in the door that day get the benefit of it. And I mean, it does mean you got to look at prime once a month.
If prime goes higher, then we might be out of compliance on the cost of funds.
Yeah, because you can't go more than 7.75 over, correct?
So what's our historical history over the last few years? Say what was our.
Well, we've averaged 5.
We've been going
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. Why don't we do the
kind of have to look at it like
7.75?
3 years before COVID.
Why don't we
Right,
take a
3
se-
years before COVID, it was 7 and.
Seven.
Or 7 and a
7.75.
quarter, somewhere.
Why don't we do 7.75 and do a
7.75.
quarterly review with this committee?
How about 7.5?
Well, at least with the 7.75, we can tie it, we can tell people why we can charge that, because that's what the SBA requires. But it doesn't, I mean, it's,
We need a motion for this?
yeah, go ahead. Whatever you,
But are we at the number?
I feel we should be at 7.75,
I'm comfortable with
7
that.
3/4, because that keeps us room to, we can always change it in 3 months, right?
yeah, we look at it every 3 months.
Okay, so motion to approve the new interest rate at 7.75. Second? Okay. All in favor, excuse me, anyone opposed? No, okay, now it's good, thank you. Okay, Steve, we are presenting our loan request now, ACW millwork.
Yeah,
we'll turn it to Martha
for ACW.
ACW is located actually in Clobber. They're in the Commerce Park. We've been working with them since they started in 2017. The loan request is for $75,000, and we're splitting it between the CEDC loan fund and the SBA microloan fund. Once again, it's a 10-year term on the CEDC loan fund and 6 years on the SBA microloan. The interest rate on this one is 6%. The purpose is equipment purchases and working capital, and we will have a lien on the equipment purchased with the loan proceeds and the personal guarantee of all 3 principals. I don't know if you all have a chance to open up the loan request that we sent out Friday morning. That included photos of the business, their debt schedule, and their P&L and balance sheet.
I never got that stuff. Haven't seen it. I haven't seen it.
All right, we'll check.
We'll check the address book this morning.
Yeah, probably. Could be wrong.
Now, we send it out via encrypted email. It's possible it goes into junk or no. Okay, all right.
Haven't seen it. That's all right. I'm just,
Can you
making
share
a
the
note.
photos maybe with Ken?
Yes.
Do you
that's
mind?
all right, sure.
I gotta have,
There were the photos. There's the packet, Ken.
I think this loan is to an existing customer. I think that they have 3 partners. They're each jointly and severally guaranteeing the loan. One partner is much stronger than the other. I think it's a similar conversation to the other loan we did last month with the brewery. They have been in business for 6 years.
Yes.
What they do is they make cabinetry. When Key Bank bought First Niagara, they got the contract for $1.2 million to go in and turn everything into red and white countertops instead of blue and white countertops. And they just got a $500,000 contract for bulk commercial work. Again, I think when you look at one of the things that we all looked at was their aggregate debt. This year, they're looking, what, $1 million something, Steve, in revenue?
Yes.
They think that it'd be a difficult loan without the guarantees. But the one guarantor has significant real estate holdings, significant net worth, and has a
there
high,
are 3 partners.
yeah, and he has a high visibility. Just was 40 under 40
Last
capital
year.
region.
Yep.
But I think there's a moral suasion that you're not going to walk away from. this loan, which is, and the other thing is because we looked at combining the two existing loans with the new loan, but then that would push out the amortization. This way, the first loan is up in 2020.
Next.
Four. The second loan is up in 2028, and by that point, they owe us almost like under $50,000. So, it is, if we went the full, if we rewrote the loan into a single 10-year loan, they'd still owe about $80,000. So, I mean, I think that continuing the structure that we already have with them and adding the additional loan with the guarantees and the fact that they have been in business for 5 years. And they did do some strategic planning, and they did buy some new equipment that allow them to do a different kind of work. Martha and Steve, I think that we recommend it to the committee.
I was wondering about the new contract. That isn't the building that might not be built, is it?
No, this is up in, somewhere in Rensselaer.
Oh,
It's a 42-unit apartment building.
Any other questions?
Do we have any of the real estate collateral from the previous loans?
We don't.
The issue is that they're renting the building from a separate LLC that owns the property. Or is it the same owners?
Same 3 owners.
They can't budget?
We didn't ask them to. We have significant equipment. We have a lien on a $100,000 CNC machine, and we'll make sure we include that in this lien that we file for this one as well.
And everything is cross defaulted.
Yeah. And we were going to, increase the amount of the UCC by the new dollar amount, and take it out beyond the 24 and 28.
As long as it's all cross defaulted.
Yeah. And we were talking with Andy, who wasn't able to be here this morning, but that it would be due on any change in control or sale of the business.
Any other questions?
motion to approve.
All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
So we'll move on to Old Hudson, a market and cafe here in Hudson. They've requested a $75,000 loan that we've split between the CEDC fund and the SBA microloan program. Both loans be at 6% interest. CEDC loan over 120 months. The SBA loan 72 months. Total monthly payment $969.42. Purpose of the loan is working capital, and for collateral, a lien on the business assets, a second mortgage on the principal's residence, and the personal guarantee of the principal. That's Old Hudson here in Hudson.
And this is also a known entity. They have previously with us that was an excellent.
I didn't get
Okay, you can scroll down.
One thing I noticed, Steve, is they seem very light on cash and have some large credit card balances. Do you know if those are paid off monthly, like for inventory, or if they're actually carrying a balance monthly?
I believe she is carrying a balance. She's been funding the expansion using her own funds. Well, thought they'd be done by now, but as with most projects, it's behind schedule and over budget, so that's why she.
What's in the rent expense line? We reviewed the lease.
Yes, and I think, have we seen the lease that includes the expansion?
We have not.
Because it went up in 24, so the rent expense for this year is about 52,000. If you want to change percent, it went up to 76.8 and it's down to 52. So I'm thinking there's
Yeah,
a disconnect there.
and we can, we'll make sure we get a copy of
Yeah,
that lease.
assuming the rent's going up.
Galvan owns that property.
liquidity makes me nervous. But
Yeah, I think they were gonna expand at the cafe last year. Open to the next
where this
section.
used to be the Eagle over there,
Yeah.
in that whole building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone comfortable voting on that? More questions?
If you subject to,
The Rick with the lease?
yeah,
Sure.
I'll make the motion, we approve subject to
Lease review. Lease review. Second? All those in favor?
aye.
Anyone opposed? No, so carried. The next is
Romber Works. Before you start that, I do have something I gotta bring up. I don't know if it's gonna make it matter with me. I just finished working on a job with Mr. Romber Works. To put the kitchen in. Is there a conflict of interest with me?
I would just recuse yourself since we have a quorum.
No, I'm
Yeah,
just.
I
Do we
just,
have a problem? We don't.
Michael's on.
right, yeah, you can't count, it doesn't count.
Oh, my son.
You have 3 out of 5. But you don't need a quorum for a vote if there's a recusal, you just need a quorum to call the meeting on.
I'm gonna
Alright.
recuse myself just for.
Yeah.
Did it go well?
Yeah.
yeah, that's why, can you talk about that? Let them know.
Everything went well, it's just the
Would
fact
you
I don't-
recommend him?
I don't know if that's considered a conflict of interest in this
Yeah.
case.
Yeah,
I think it's
You
just
know-
easier.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm being upfront with you.
Yep, that's good.
So I'm gonna recuse myself on this one, so.
Okay.
Does Ken have to leave the room?
Okay, to present Romber Works, they're located in the town of Livingston. They do custom kitchens and cabinetry. Their request is $50,000 that we've divided between the CEDC fund and the SBA microloan program. The CEDC loan would be at 120 months, where the SBA loan is 72 months. Total monthly payment, $664.52, 6% interest on the 2 loans. This would be a debt consolidation loan. And we have lien on business assets, a second mortgage on the residence, and the personal guarantee of the principal. That's Romber Works LLC.
Collateral here, the only mortgage behind that first. History. Great personal credit.
Again, an existing client with a good repayment history, solid.
It's 2 full-time employees? Was it? Or-
I think that includes him.
Okay.
And again, the SBA only requires 1 position to be retained.
Sure of that private loan.
Yeah. 7-year term, it's at 5%, it's a private loan.
Take out the funding source.
Improvements to the shop and equipment. It's not technically debt consolidation, we're refinancing one existing.
Yeah, I wonder why it didn't come here first.
I know.
They just make it so easy to click, click, click.
I think he was just moving forward, yeah. He's been working with Brian Blythe, one of our business consultants, which has been very useful. He doesn't use business software, which is a drawback, but he has an accountant who's working with him.
I'm good with it. I'm just curious where it comes first rather than. Expensive.
Sarah, are you okay with this?
Yes.
Okay. We got a motion to approve this one.
Second.
And
All those in favor? Yep. Anyone opposed? No?
I was just gonna say, this ties in well with that interest rate discussion before. This shows our alternatives paying 14.5%. If we said your rate now is 8, relatively.
Right.
Good point.
So going forward,
And
There's
you're-
a monitoring process to this. Told them 6%.
So
Change.
I think there probably are a couple, if we have a commitment letter out to them, I think we even have one that's still at 5%. It hasn't closed yet, and we extended that commitment. We have a couple that are out at 6%, and we'll look if we've, quoted anybody 6%, we may hold that. But, we're having discussions with another potential client tomorrow, a referral from you. Thank you very much. And, we'll be quoting 7 3/4 going forward.
I also think that, the people who are using their credit cards are what, 24%.
Yeah, I got one of those, right? 20 something.
that'll show your business.
Yeah, we've been 7 3/4 is bargain.
Okay, so Martha, is this you, the Go Mushrooms collateral discussion?
Yeah.
We're changing the collateral.
Yeah, well, if we do change the collateral, it has to go to the full board, so I thought we would have discussion starting here. We had proposed taking a second mortgage on the building that is owned by Tivoli Mushrooms. It's similar ownership, but not identical ownership, and apparently there are 1 or 2 owners in that building that don't want a mortgage for Go Mushrooms. So the owner has proposed, we have some options. I've suggested that we take a second mortgage on her personal residence, but she's a partner. The other partner doesn't own any personal property, so that creates a tiny bit of, disparity. She has provided a list of assets for the business. It doesn't total $75,000. It totals $62,000. Now they're continuing to buy equipment and it's a startup. We'd love to close this loan, and they would love to close the loan. They don't need the funding immediately. They're pretty well financed in the short term, but I guess I just wanted to get an idea from the committee whether we would be willing to put a first lien on all business assets and give up a second, actually, it would be a third mortgage. We can take a position on the commercial property. I think part of this, again, depends on the strength of the personal guarantee. We have another loan to their sister company. They're paying on time. One of the principals served as a consultant for CEDC for the past, 5 or 8 years. She takes that personal guarantee very seriously. Both of the partners do.
What is the credit score?
Oh, should be in this. 816 for one client, 689 for the other who doesn't own the real estate.
And what the monthly payment?
The monthly payment is $969. This is a $75,000 loan.
And how much other debt?
None.
No. Again, I think, it's the fact that she was involved with a business that we've already loaned to and had a good experience, and the fact that, they are working together. And there are 2 partners with guarantees that, even if we liquidated 25% of the equipment, they each pay $350 a month, pay off the loan. Is it 10-year?
10-year on the CEDC loan and 6-year on the other. And she's invested $20,000 of her own funds to date. She's the one who has been funding the startup.
But the sister business provide a guarantee?
Again, I think the difficulty is that there are other equity investors in that business.
Stepchildren. Yeah, stepchildren, that's right.
But yeah, this was before I was on the team, so I don't know much about the credit. But so if there's another business, you have that.
Well, we don't want to leave ourselves exposed to a startup. But again, it's closely tied to the other business that we have a relationship with. We've known the one client in particular for years and years and worked with her. I don't think a bank would do this, but I guess I want to find out if we'd be willing to consider giving up a third mortgage on the property and just putting a first lien on the business asset.
There's absolutely no other liens on the business assets.
Correct.
And ours is the second mortgage also on the building.
Well, we have a second mortgage on the sister business.
Right.
So is it better to have the first lien on the equipment than a third on the mortgage?
Same building.
Yep. Well, yes, but they are now setting up a new office space right across from the hospital, so this is not going to be operating out of that.
It's a
building.
second location.
Well,
No.
technically, they're removing
Separate
themselves,
businesses.
yeah, from that office, from that.
They won't be leasing space at the other building.
Right.
You know, I think we've been in situations where there was a restaurant in Philmont that we were behind, I believe here, Bank of Green County. And, you know, it was a 75,000 plus loan, and I think we got $5,000. By the time you go through building foreclosure and the way the
Right.
state doesn't allow you to, I think what would happen here is the business hypothetically in this situation would go out of business. And then you would come in and take the equipment. And
If it's there,
if it's there,
it's probably long gone at that point.
and,
Way ahead of time.
well, and we've had some success there.
I was gonna ask that, because I always see that UCC as like semi-unsecured, basically.
You know, what, it gives you some
You're right.
leverage. What happened in the case of the restaurant that, you know, they went out of business, and we were able to help them find someone to buy the equipment, and then someone came in behind them, and they were able to pay us off, or did they have to pay us $250 a month for some period of time after that?
I think.
Yeah.
Probably with a balance on it.
Again, there's, you know, real question is, what is the equipment and is there a market for it? You know, a used gas oven is probably, you know, worth something. Tincture,
Yeah, 774,
you know. But again, I think that we have to kind of recondition ourselves. We've had such a success rate in terms of, you know, what, $125,000 write-off in 8 years on a $2 million portfolio. I think that, you know, when you look at you know, the schedule of delinquencies, you know, are right now are only $6,000 in back interest. But I think when you look at the total outstanding principal balance, you know, really the farm brewery that you know has the most outstanding. The other is 3,000, 11,000, 4,000. But I think the demonstrated ability to work through these things that Martha has demonstrated, she's been working with her on now, doesn't eliminate our risk, it mitigates it. But I also think that you know, we've had quite a run, and I think we just have to be ready for. We had one where we had a $90,000 loan, and we helped the people who were buying that business by giving them a $60,000 loan, and we cut our risk by 30,000. It's not a exact science, but we've been very fortunate in mitigating risk, but it's not that you know, when one of these goes bad, we're going to sit here and remember what we talked about if we were lukewarm about it, we're gonna kick ourselves, but I think we're also in that business.
Also, collateral doesn't appeal, it's cash flow does. So
Yeah.
I like the cash flow, collateral, but what is the last?
Well, that works
Last
on, on an
So
existing
it's
business,
like-
but with a brand new startup,
Like it,
I think what we have to look at is if we have early defaults, do we go in with technical assistance and help them get back on track? I mean, it's more, as you point out, if they can't, if there's a default in the first year, is it time to insist that they that they accept technical assistance to see, is there some way we can help them with their business plan to modify it and get back on track? And
I do feel, it feels like all of these loans are getting a little bit more challenging. There are so many that have an EIDL, which is very, very reasonable terms, but, very small businesses have $80,000 and $100,000 out there that they didn't have before and probably can't remember what the
And
money
they-
was used for.
Did you take the first meet on that one, that's right?
It
You
depends.
can subordinate,
I
think you can get the subordinate.
You can request a subordination, absolutely. Sometimes it's on real estate. If it's under $25,000, there's no UCC filed at all. But I have one more in addition to Go Mushrooms, and I really wasn't prepared to present it, but I want to mention it. It'll have to go to the full board anyway because it's a major collateral change, and it's an existing client who is now ready to be approved for a second loan from HVADC. And we have a second mortgage on their property and we have a first lien on their assets. And HVADC has asked us to subordinate one or the other. And we're going to look at it and we'll be ready to ask the board for its approval next week. They've only had the loan for 1 year. They're excellent payers. They do have quite a bit of business assets, but most of it is fine.
So were we comfortable bringing this goes to the full board?
It does
Yeah.
need to be.
I'd say we got to make the motion, it goes to the full board for the discussion here.
A second.
So carried.
Thank you.
That concludes our agenda with the. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Now it's carried.
we do have one other report. Steve worked very hard on putting together a report in response to the request that you had made at our last meeting with respect to kind of a profile as it relates to our concentrations and what percentage of our portfolio is paid down. Steve?
This was a sector report that Martha and I had worked off of from our software program. And it breaks out the number of businesses that have active loans and where that business falls within a sector. But it also breaks out the number of active loans. So for example, we have 71 active businesses that we serve. And those 71 businesses have 114 loans with CEDC that we have split between our two loan funds. The interesting point when I first pulled this was that within food services, 30% of our portfolio is outstanding. Or in other words, 30% of the loans that we've done have been to serve the food business sector, food service sector. And the same, 29.45% of outstanding portfolio is within that sector. In second place, if you will, the retail sector. The combination of food service and retail, just about 50% of the portfolio serving those two sectors.
This is wonderful.
Very interesting.
I mean, it does show, it reflects the local economy, but it also shows by the extra work that Steve did to identify subsectors, shows the diversity of even within
Yeah.
those sectors. And I do think that the eyes don't allow me to do this without using a ruler here. Even within the food service sector, 9% of the 29% is restaurants. The rest is pretty well. And if you add the takeout restaurant, even with the food truck or the ice cream and the juice sandwich shop, you're still under 15% of what you would consider cafe, restaurant, ice cream shop.
I'm surprised that there aren't more contractors and landscapers, businesses like that. That's one of the most common ones
That you
my
get.
day job that
Yeah.
I say.
So we-
And those are the ones that I say, we don't typically fund those businesses. We've done a couple. What I find is they're generally very disorganized, like
I agree with that.
can't show us any financials. I don't know, there's certain, if somebody comes to me for a gas station, I tell them go to Pursuit. I've never funded
Yeah,
one.
gas
and
station's a whole different.
Yeah,
One of the things too, though, is usually they're looking to buy a pickup truck, or they usually buy a new mower,
Some kind of equipment.
and that really does fit into what you do versus.
or they can
What we
get
do.
that funded or financed, but again, they're seasonal businesses and they're just tricky.
They're not
I know.
they're not the leasing company that we do with $200,000 trucks at the time.
Right.
But at the same time, I would have thought we would have seen more salons, more landscapers, more, and I guess what this will help us do going forward is really taking a look at, are there niches that we don't have a significant exposure to that we would like to, and then begin target market.
I do have.
Well, childcare came up in the board meeting.
The child care center in Albany that someone's opening just got a $5 million loan. So I mean, yeah, but it's going to be a big one. So they have to buy a building, and but I think
Yeah, those people tend to be very debt averse. We do have Brian's wife working with a landscaper, trying to help him come up from under his debt, But again, when he came back to me, he had cleaned some things up. I guess his credit score has improved. He said, "Do you want to take a second look?" And I said, "No, it was really, he had gotten himself in so much trouble that I wasn't sure he had learned enough from that experience that we wanted."
on the child care side, we have talked at our workforce and education committee in conjunction with the college and with Chris Nardone at New York Works, putting together a facility that you could get $25,000 or $50,000, and something like that. We might want to look at a lower interest rate if we got there, but it was for in-home daycare where you register but you're not licensed by the state, and so someone might need to buy $10,000 worth of equipment to be able to kick that off, or have some working capital to pay the staff for the first 3 months of wages, so that as they were signing up families and they were paying. I saw this thing on television last night that he said maybe up to a third of daycares could close because they've been receiving, they received so much money from the government during COVID. There was one in Westchester County that was featured on CBS Evening News nationally, and it looked like fairly sophisticated. It wasn't a home daycare,
Right.
but the lady said, people can't pay what I need you to pay now with inflation and costs, and the cost structure I got used to when I had all the federal money. So, but in 30 days, 3 million kids could get bounced out of daycare because they were nationwide. So that would result in mothers who went back to work, or single, their fathers, deciding which spouse or significant other is going to work.
Think about 40 housing in Westchester on single income.
And what we also looked at, we did look at a couple of, Martha had a couple of clients early on. And, they were thinking that what they were paying out in daycare, they could save and make up the net by bringing in 2 or 3 other, or 5 other kids. But it just doesn't work because, the county has funds, but it's like $250 a week. And, and the parents couldn't subsidize what it really costs to do it. But the other thing we're working on is we have a list of, you don't have it, but we have a list of loans that have been approved but not closed, including the mushroom loan that we looked at. Martha and Steve have put so much time into working with these people that we are looking to go through that list and identify what is the reason. Is it because we've asked for some collateral belt and suspenders that we could just use the suspenders or just use the belt? Is there something that is it because of what we've asked for that they're delayed, or is there some other issue? Is the other issue managed or addressed by technical assistance? But we are 16 loans through closed this year compared to 24 last year, and I think part of what we want to do is keep that volume up, A, because we have the money, and B, to ensure that our technical assistance from the SBA, which is based on volume, is one of the, I think, several classifications. But I do want to make sure that after all the work they put in, that we go back and see what's holding this up. And I guess finally we have the SBA coming for their annual visit. Right?
Yeah, at the end of October, they have changed once again the format of this review. During COVID, it was done remotely, and we would get a list of loans in advance that they were going to review, which gave us time to really prepare. This time, he's going to come in person, and he's going to be reviewing 10 loans, and we won't know in advance which ones he'll be looking at. So
we're not worried. You've done this. This isn't your first rodeo. And they're very, it's a very positive relationship. They're not here to get us. They're here to just oversee. And Jeff Boyce manages the Albany. We're in the Syracuse district, and there's an Albany satellite office. And the gentleman who used to run the Albany satellite office became the deputy director, and then when the director retired, after 34 plus years as director in Syracuse, he moved up. So, and the relationship that Martha's developed with the team in Washington that actually does the funding, I think we are considered both at that office in Washington and in the regional office as one of their stars because of the work that Martha and Steve do.
well, we're not a problem. Let's put it that way.
One other thing that we're looking at is the Village of Kinderhook has received $2.25 million in state money as part of the governor's New York Forward program. It was basically a mini downtown revitalization initiative that would allow smaller communities that really wouldn't have the capacity to spend $10 million to have smaller amounts. One of the things they're looking at there's several people in that community within the footprint that's been defined as the area where money can be spent, who are looking for funds to upgrade their facades, redo their roof, do things that I think the mayor and the village council, village board are looking at. Is that fair to people? If you just finished your roof, or you just did your wood rot, or you just changed your windows. And so what they've done in some other communities is they've set up a loan program. And one of the features of that program would be to take $300,000 as an example of the downtown the New York Forward money and enter into an agreement with an entity like CEDC to manage it. Those funds would be used to provide a grant to these building owners that would then be connected to a loan. So, if you had $50,000 worth of, wood rot, window repair in these historic buildings, you get a $25,000 grant and a $25,000 loan from us. We would have some caps on it. We'd have to come back to this committee and we'd have to get your approval as to how it was structured and also board approval. But, we are pushing $3.5 million of capacity with 1.7 outstanding. And so, the thought was that, and the other piece of this, by getting the administration of that grant, CEDC would receive a $30,000 fee. Any other variations to that, Jessica?
The other thing I found interesting is that CEDC would contact directly with the state, not funnel through as Mike outlined. The grant was awarded to the 2.25 million was awarded to the village of Kinderhook. It was for this loan program would bypass the village and contract with us, so we would contact with the state for that $300,000 loan.
And for instance, if you needed $100,000 to redo your roof, you would have to get, you get a $25,000 grant, $25,000 loan, and you'd have to go get the $50,000 somewhere else. So, it would be and you'd have to qualify for credit under our credit criteria. But, it was a way for us to get a fee as well as get some more money on the street. And, we were looking at 5-year loans. And you may find that out of the 7 or 8 building owners who are looking at that, it may be too complicated for them and they'll just go get the money and do what they should have done in the first place. And we probably would come back at the request of the state and ask for a lower interest rate on that program. But it's still in the making. And then finally, Martha and I and Jessica have had conversations with Greene County. We are concerned that because we are the designated SBA micro lender in Columbia and Greene, and 3 years ago we had a group from Westchester seek permission to come up here and do microloans in Columbia and Greene counties, and we pushed back on the basis that they served 7 counties in the greater New York City and Connecticut area. And we put together that there were over 1.2 million small businesses with 10 or less employees in those counties. And we said that when you can demonstrate clearly that you've provided adequate and in-depth service to all of the existing businesses that you have, we'll be happy to have you come up and help us. But, it's a world where you can't, and now that James Hanna is the new economic development director in Greene County, and they have a loan fund, we do have to figure out a way to work with him and not just get their one-offs because they don't want to do them with their loan fund. But I do think at some point we're going to, in our evaluation by the SBA, someone either from external pressure or, if I were the guy coming to do our review, where are the Greene County loans? So I do think that look at some targeted marketing and partnership. That's an area we can get some more money on the street. What Steve has looked at for us is, how much money you put on the street. If you put too much on the street, you won't have it in the ordinary course of repayment to put on the street next year. And there is a magic number. It used to be $350,000 a year, and we've been doing $500,000 to $600,000 a year, but we keep getting the new tranches from the SBA. So we hope to create this where it's evergreen, at least the CEDC loan fund, where it goes on forever, even with a 15% delinquency, which we haven't had at all.
Can I just mention one thing? So under Columbia Forward program, we have an event in partnership with the Chamber of Commerce this Thursday at
And we'll send out an email today to all board members. Martha, and Steve, anything else?
Thank you.
I don't know if anyone's on that. We have to ask for public comment. but-
Michael,
Michael said.
comments from Michael?
No comments over here. I'm just taking care of my son who got the obligatory school just started cold. So
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, aye.
Thank you all very
Thank you.
much.